Hey guys, so this will be a review of the seed starter Jiffy boxes or greenhouses that you can get at the home improvement stores like Home Depot. I had two different kinds that I used, and this is going to be my opinion and experiences with them. So the first thing, the main difference is that this is a little puck style, and then that kind was just the little peat moss containers, and you had to add your own growing material to that. So with these, they come in little pucks, and you just water it, and it soaks up the water and expands into this size. Here's a loud playing for you. Cool. Now that interruption has passed, back to this. It expands to the full size, and then you can plant it in it. So it uses peat moss inside. I'm not sure what this material on the outside is. Some kind of organic cloth-like material. It rips pretty easily. But as you can see, whatever that material is, the mold just loves it. It gets mold everywhere. And I'm not a fan of that. Not that it probably would affect the plant. I don't think it would, but I'm just not a fan of having mold everywhere. I mean, you can see on these, there's not a trace of mold anywhere that I can tell. So I'm not sure why that is, but you know, mold. There you go. The other issue I have with these is that they dry out super fast. So without the top on, and that's another thing that we'll get into. I'm sure if you've got the top on, it won't dry out as fast, but unless you're taping the top down, it's going to be blown off in the wind. So the tops are basically useless if it's outside. And that brings me also to rain, whereas if it's raining, these will flood and they will ruin your plants. And there was a rainstorm here, and I thought that I was safe because I had drilled holes in the bottom of this. No, it doesn't drain fast enough. It actually overflowed, and water was flowing out of the sides because of how much rain we can get here in these storms. So it actually, I was luckily able to save a bunch of stuff, and I had to, drain it out and put a fan on everything for 24 hours, and most of everything was able to be saved. But that's because I got to it like immediately, like right after the rainstorm started. So if it had stayed out there, they would have been all killed. So basically, if you've got the top on it, it's supposed to protect from the rain, but again, any kind of wind blows, that top's gone. It's blasting across your yard, and then you've got a mess to deal with. So I guess you could tape it down, but then you can't. Then you've got to untape it to get to the inside, and you got to retape it. So that's just kind of, annoying. So I'm not a fan of that. Let's see. Take a look at my notes here. So another big thing is both are kind of hard to water, and what I mean by that is it's very easy to overwater, and then again they dry out so quickly, especially in the sun, that you've got to rewater very quickly as well. So it's just trying to keep them in that safe zone of being moist but not flooded, but also not dry. Difficult. And that's the same with these over here. These are a little less difficult, but they do still dry out pretty quickly. Price wise, this one right here is about $9. Those over there were about $7, but again, those you have to add your own growing medium to. And so what I use for growing medium on those is coconut coir mixed with a little vermiculite and perlite, and that's all they need to get started. And then of course that has no nutritional value for them, so after a few weeks you're going to have to transplant them out or supplement with liquid fertilizer, whatnot. But that's how I got those going over there. So as far as watering goes, the other thing too is if you've got a bunch of different stuff growing here, different things need different amounts of water. So if you've got, you know, kind of like what I did like 1 or 2 rows of one thing and 1 or 2 rows of another thing. Well, if you've got like, you know, 12 or 13 different varieties of plants in here, they're not all necessarily going to want water every day, or they're not even all going to necessarily want to be moist all the time. Certain things like lavender and oregano don't want to be, you know, wet all the time. So it's you can't really selectively water when you got a group like this. So, and again, same over there, because those are all stacked on top of each other. You can't selectively water, so that can be a problem. So where does that sort of leave me is I'm probably not going to use these again, just for all those issues. I mean, they are good for starting. If you've got a bunch of the same thing going, I'd say they're good for that. Like, those are all marigolds except for the lavender at the end right there. So if you're going to start like a bunch of one thing, I'd say it's possible that would be worthwhile to do that. But again, you're still going to run into all those other issues I mentioned. And another difference is this lid on this one, it actually fits pretty well, and I like it. It's got like a little notch and a groove, so it kind of stays on there pretty well on this one. But on that one, the lid is designed completely different. I'll show you. There's no notch for it, and it just kind of sits on top, and it looks like it's supposed to lock down, but it doesn't. Just trust me, the way that this plastic is bent, and it's not a well-designed lid. So the lid on those is just trash altogether. The lid on this one is actually somewhat decent, but still, without taping it down, it's going to be blowing in the wind. So just not a fan of the lids on either of them, really. So, and then you can kind of see some of these that I transplanted out. You've still got that mold on there. And so some of them actually started kind of tearing that paper down so that it wasn't up and it was underneath the soil more when I transplanted them. So that kind of seems to be a good route to go instead of just putting it straight in. Again, I mean, is that really going to affect the plant? Probably not. But, you know, I'd rather not have it than have it. So one other thing to show you is that this puck style, the smaller one has 72 in it, I believe, and that was the $9 one. This is a larger puck style, and it's only got 36, but they're for larger, you know, plants, and they can grow a little bit longer in here without becoming root bound. But this one is actually $16 for this one. And another thing I will mention about these is we'll take one of these up, and you can see this tray got it the worst. Whenever it flooded, a bunch of the peat moss came out of these, and a bunch of these got kind of sunk down. So again, you got to be really careful with that. So if we look here, see all the roots down there. So these have no problem whatsoever of the roots poking out. And again, that's just a very thin, like paper thin, some kind of organic material. I'm not sure what. These peat containers, on the other hand, they're much more thick material, and while I have seen some of these poking roots out through this material, very few of them have. So I mean, you can see down here, there's not really any roots coming out. Those are fairly big plants. So again, down here you don't really see any roots. You can kind of start seeing some right there, just a little bit. But I do believe that these containers are kind of limiting their roots from being able to spread out as much as they would like. Another plane going over. Lovely. So as I was saying, I do believe that these containers make it a little bit more difficult for them to spread roots out versus these. I know they have no problem. Their roots just go straight through that stuff, no problem. So what I have been doing when I'm transplanting these out is I'm actually tearing the peat moss paper container off and just transplanting my core material inside straight out over here. I'll show you. So you can see some of these right here where I did that. So there's no peat moss container, it's just the material that was inside my coconut core mixture. So that's another downside of those containers is, yeah, they will poke through, but is it going to take them a lot longer to get going because they're struggling to get through that. So my final conclusions are, me personally, probably won't use those ever again. There's too many negatives and too few positives, in my opinion. I would much rather have my seed starting mix going on with containers like these and just line up a ton of these small buckets and do it that way. To me, personally, I like that better. But anyways, that concludes my review. And as you hear, another loud vehicle coming through. So I will catch you guys next time. Take care.